Nearly 30% of annual giving happens in December. That's kind of a staggering number if we think about that. But yet, most nonprofits lose half of our donors. So, half of our donors might be gone by next year. So, think about how busy this year end was, how hard we've worked to get these donations in. And now we might even lose over half of those donors by next year. So, I'm here to let you in on a little secret to success. And really, what it is what you are doing after the donation or beyond the donation. So, January isn't the end, it's actually your biggest opportunity. And I'm going to give you a playbook for how to do this. But first, okay, let's all just take a collective deep breath. All right. So, end of year, not only for us nonprofits that are doing end of year fundraising, reporting, but just our own lives in general are really busy at the end of the year. So let's all just take a collective deep breath and take the time to really reflect and celebrate what's happened. I think, especially with nonprofits, but probably in other industries as well, it's really about celebrating. And it's not just a luxury, it's a strategy that's going to help us for retention, resilience, and really taking this renewed purpose as we head in to the new year. So celebrate what you've done, all the accomplishments, take that deep breath, and then let's dive in to what happens next. Here at DonorDoc, we've developed the Smart Steward Method. This is a way to build and nurture relationships from the first gift and beyond. And really, with our Smart Steward Method, we're going to try and help you be productive, know what needs to get done every single day. And then that way, you can have more confidence that you're doing the work that needs to be done to help make a difference. And the experience that your donors are having with you are aligning with their expectations, even as you grow. This is going to help scale your interactions with your donors. So, when we talk about this today, we're going to try and understand what we need to do now after year end is done. So, we're going to evaluate our data and look at what we need to review. We're going to establish what we need to do next, how to thank and retain our new donors, and then even identify early year engagement and stewardship opportunities that are going to last beyond just that first thank you in January. First, we're going to start with our evaluate stage. And when we think about that, we're going to look at how much money we raised and how successful we are, but we really want to focus on more than just money. So let's look at our processes, what worked and what didn't, what was scalable and what wasn't. So we're going to look beyond just the donations and look at our patterns. And then, of course, there's metrics that we need to review. We can look at total revenue. We can look at those first time donors. How many of our donors through this campaign were new versus repeat donors? What was our retention rate over this specific campaign? Sometimes we look at over the, year our retention rate, but you can also look at it at a campaign level as well too. What was the average gift size this campaign? And did we have any lapsed donors that we reactivated back to that donor stage? So these can be just a few of the metrics that you might want to look at when we are evaluating how our end of year went. And like I said, look for patterns, not just totals when you're looking at this. We also want to take those lessons that we've learned and we want to put them into a new strategy. So again, these are just some supporting metrics that you can look at. What is your retention rate? What was the percent of your lapsed donors who came back and they gave again? That would be another one. And what was the most successful channel of your fundraising? So at DonorDoc, we call those appeals, but was your email that went out successful? How about, did you make phone calls, direct mail? Did you have an event? What was the most successful channel or the highest response rate is something else to look at. And you can even look at that subsection of people. So your reactivated donors, those who came back, what was the average gift size in that area? And then of course that retention. So how many stay active after this certain amount of time. So these are just extra metrics that we can look at that help us in our evaluation stage of what we did was effective or not, and what should we change. Next, we're going to go into the established stage. This is where we're going to take what we learned in our evaluate stage and we're going to get ready to establish what we're going to do next. I have a background in education and we talk a lot about SMART goals in education. And part of that is that they are measurable. So looking at some SMART goals here, it could be we want to increase our recurring monthly donors by 25%. And we're going to do this through segmented follow-up with this end of year donors that we've been communicating with. You can watch your retention, not just revenue. We all have heard the statistics that it costs less time and money to keep our donors than it does to get new donors. So we want to increase our overall donor retention from 42% to 50% by launching a stewardship plan with donor journeys and nurturing that relationship. The industry standard is somewhere around that 40%. So even a slight increase in that can really make a difference in your organization. And perhaps it's identifying those lapsed donors early. So the SMART goal is reactivating 15% of donors who last gave in 2024. And we're going to do this through a multi-channel. So we're going to email them, call them, re-engagement campaign. And so we're going to segment out this information and create these SMART goals. And like I said, it needs to be measurable. That's the piece of it that sometimes gets missed. All right, we're going to take the data. So we're running our reports, we're looking at this, and we're going to turn it into insight and actionable steps. Who were your most engaged donors? That could be through their gift size or the number of gifts they gave. It could be with activities, volunteer hours, or response to your emails. Did they reply back? So, how are people engaging with you? Did people want to give to specific programs or program designation during your campaign? So, identify your most engaged donors. And then it's really helpful to create donor segmentation. The segmentation is really what helps us personalize our outreach when we're nurturing these relationships. For in Donor Doc, we do have donor journeys for these 6 key segments. We have the first-time donors. They're giving their very first gift. They are becoming a recurring donor. They've reactivated from lapsed. You have the lapsed donors as well. So if some people didn't give in this campaign, we still want to segment that information. The mid-level donors, these can be your sustainers, but it doesn't quite reach your major donor level yet. So these are a few segmentations that you can look at. Check out our fundraising bootcamp if you haven't already. We dive into a lot of these segmentations, and these journey plans we're going to talk about are also in that fundraising bootcamp, which is available to you. So I hope you take a deeper dive into that. We really go into that in depth. Then use those insights to guide your Q1 outreach. We're going to use the personalization on communication channel preferences, giving, how they like to give, and then enroll them into these segmented journeys. And that's really the nurturing relational part of this outreach. And then we're getting into the third area, which is execute. This is where we're going to do the steps. And we really want to keep the energy going. So don't disappear after end of year. Okay. If you were interested, we do have a great video on an end of year strategy, but don't disappear after all of that engagement. Stay visible. And this can be with updates like, here's what your gift made possible, or bring them in and help your donors feel included. So update them on what is happening. I always reiterate that the impact storytelling makes the most difference. We're going to connect their transactional gift with the story that we're telling and creating that emotional connection to what their gift is providing. And you can support that with the data and the stats, but lead with the story. Stories engage the heart. while the data validates the mind. And start with gratitude. Gratitude really builds loyalty with your organization. Donors who feel appreciated give again, and typically they give more. Thank donors are actually 51% more likely to give again. So send your thank yous. Make sure they're timely. We're getting those out. They're personal. We're using their name. We can talk about the donation and some of that personalization that we've brought in. And it's impact focused. Bring them into the organization and show them what their dollars are creating using that storytelling. We want to send messages that are personal and segmented because it matters. The note or the email or the phone call that we're having with our major donor is probably different than the donor who just came to us for the very first time. And it's probably also different from the person who gives to us on a monthly basis, those recurring supporters. And of course, we want to invite back and celebrate our reactivated donors who were lapsed, but now they've given to us again. I think gone are the days of sending the same message to the entire list of your contacts at the very same time. It matters to send the right message at the right time and personalize it so that your donors know that you care and you're recognizing them. So, a few tips for building loyalty through gratitude, because we are so grateful for those donors. And if you've never heard of this before, we've talked about it here at Donor Doc a little bit, is Dunbar's Law, where it shows that people can really have about 150 relationships that they can manage at one time. And if you think about your donors, but you also have family and friends and coworkers, and if we can only do 150 of those successfully at a time, this is where technology really comes in and can help you with this. Use the tools that you have within your organization. So we talk about this equation that the human relationship is still the core of the equation with your fundraising, and tools and automations and these types of things are the exponent. They're the things that help us scale that and make it possible. But the human relationship is still at the core of it. So we're going to personalize these, but let's use the tools that we have at our hands. So we can use personalization merge tags, segmentation, use your reporting, and then even automate some of these through communication preferences. And if you can schedule the follow-ups and the reminders so that they're coming on to your calendars, your donors are receiving communications at intervals. They're not getting only messages when you need something or you're fundraising, but they're receiving your messages at different intervals and cadences. And so we can keep them connected to the mission the entire year through. And then you can use your tools, your technology to track the engagement, update your data with who engaged and when and how and their preferences. Relationships are two ways. We're talking to our donors, but we also need to be, making sure that we're tracking when they engage back with us, because it is so important to update that information so we can keep it personal for those donors. If you're using a CRM, update it. It's not the most glamorous task, doing a little CRM audit or update. Make sure you are keeping that data up to date. Personalized thank yous can actually increase your donor retention by 39%. So when people feel appreciated and they're thanked promptly, they're actually 4 times more likely to donate again to your organization. Those are pretty staggering statistics. And I think when we're trying to move beyond the transaction and to make it more relational, I think that's a key piece of that, of the execute step. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it encourages you to simplify your donor management. Keep it simple and focus on what matters most. Try and have your data in one place. So if you're using different platforms, they're all talking or syncing into the centralized spot for your data. Hopefully you can use tools to automate your outreach and some of your reminders to keep on top of things. Track that engagement and measure your impact. All of these things can help you move beyond the donation and start nurturing those relationships the whole year through.